Welcome, fans, to the second Harrell Wrestling Talk podcast. We have a jam-packed show for you today. From CM Punk to Sting, we've got budget cuts to even a WWE Mt Rushmore. But we'll start out the show with, we finally know all the names of the participants in the main event for Money in the Bank. We knew about Del Rio, Orton, Sheamus, and Cesaro, but Wyatt, Reigns, and Cena have all been added to the match as well. Will this be the best main event match to date, Jacob?
At least in the last couple of years, I think it will be. With that, the lineup's fantastic. I mean, if you look at it, there's unlimited potential basically with them. If you would replace Del Rio with Ziggler, that's a dream lineup because Del Rio, there's no way he's going to win. We can just throw him out. He's not even in the storyline right now. Really, to me, the two people that will probably win is either Cena or Sheamus. You can have the argument of Roman Reigns, but I think there's too much trust that you would have to put into him right now at a young age. Who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. I don't know why Del Rio's in there. I think they could have definitely went somewhere else, somewhere better on that. And a lot of the stars I feel like are just too young, too fresh to be able to be the main event. And so Cena is probably the odds favorite, maybe even a Cesaro. But like I said, he may just be too new and not tested enough.
Right. Well, right now with Daniel Bryan out, they're probably going to give it to Cena because he's the golden boy that they always know. When they're in a punch or in a pinch, they'll give it to him.
Yeah, I can't see them going back to Orton so soon. I think it would generate a lot of heat, but it's just, do we really want to see another 6 months of Randy Orton holding the title?
Right, exactly. And to me, Roman Reigns, it would work good with the storyline, and they're the fact that they want to make him that main event person. But his promos, that Vicky Guerrero thing was just awful,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not much of a talker. He needs to be a guy that'll come in and just power bomb people in the tables, and almost like Batista was when he was younger, where he's more of a juggernaut than a wrestler.
Yeah.
All right. With main event happening, Seth Rollins announced a traditional Money in the Bank briefcase match will be in the next pay-per-view here in Money in the Bank. He is the first entry. Now, more will come, obviously, with that. Jonathan, who do you want to see in it?
Well, I definitely think that you're going to have, we've already know that Seth Rollins, I'm sure we're going to have Dean Ambrose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's going to be, kind of the whole match almost between them. Um, I I almost, would think that it would be better to have, Cesaro and Wyatt kind of in this match, hoping that they, could win this and make it a bigger stage later on than
Right.
them winning the belt right away. But I could see probably Bad News Barrett. I know
Right.
you'd be excited. Probably Ziggler.
Ziggler.
Ziggler get in there.
Right. Well, with this, do you think that with all the failures of cashing in lately, is it still a big deal to be the briefcase holder?
Well, I mean, it's definitely it's not a guarantee.
Right.
Just the other night I was watching some older pay-per-views of Money in the Bank, and the one thing they kept on saying was, "Oh, they're 8 for 8 for cashing in." It's pretty much a guarantee. Where now it's, well, maybe not. It may not be a
Right.
guarantee.
Right. Now, who would you want to win?
I really, I think you're gonna have to go. You got to think who you think's going to win the championship to start, and I'm sure it's going to be a face. And
Mm-hmm.
so you would have to go with a heel, and I'm going to say probably Seth Rollins would end up winning this.
Right. Do you personally want it to win though?
Personally, to win, man, you said, I'm just, I would like to see, almost a Wyatt, even though he's not in there. I'd like to see
Right.
him win it.
See, for me, I want to see someone like a Cody Rhodes who kind of he got screwed out of it last year, or even Bad News Barrett because he's a guy that's been stuck in that mid card for so long that he needs to elevate, and he's kind of that hitman for the Authority, so it would work perfect with the storyline.
Yeah. Well, we do know that the final spots were filled, and that was decided at a very eventful Raw on Monday night. We had Cena beating Kane in a stretcher match, Reigns winning a battle royal for his spot, but we also got to meet Stardust, see Kevin Hart climb through the ropes like a diva, and got to see a conflict continue to brew between Rollins and Ambrose. But what stood out to you the most, Jacob?
With Raw, overall was good. What stood out the most for me was it was almost a pay-per-view start. I mean, if you look at the lineup to begin, the first hour was Ziggler Rollins, then Bad News Barrett versus Dean Ambrose, and Wyatt and Sheamus. And then you had some squashes after that. I mean, that was an amazing start for that whole hour. You had a couple of those awful Vicky Guerrero things they filled in with it. To me, the Royal Rumble was sweet too because they built it perfectly, and Bo Dallas stole the show. There's no way that his character's so amazing that he's like almost Santino Morales, but he's a better version of him.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, the whole Reigns and Rusev, that's going to be a feud I think in the future because that them standing together and the crowd just went bananas for
Mm-hmm.
that. What do you think?
And my favorite thing was the Royal Rumble. I'm always a sucker for the Royal Rumble. That's probably one of my favorite pay-per-views. And going into it, I knew that Roman was going to win. I didn't have any doubts, but as it started getting down to 5 people to 4 people, I started cheering for Bo Dallas. I started cheering for Rusev, and I was almost okay. Maybe he's not going to win, and I was kind of unsure. But I thought it was a great match. I even went back and watched it again. I liked it so much. But like you said, it had an amazing start, and it kind of slowed down. But I think overall it was a really good Monday night.
I was gonna freak out if Bo Dallas would have won. And I love it that he threw Reigns over, and he was just like all
Yeah,
that energy. You can just see the energy go through him when he did it, and then his face just drops.
yeah,
His thing, though, I love is I think it was on SmackDown. He faced R-Truth, and R-Truth was doing his rap. It was like, "What's up? What's up?" And he was dancing with it, and he was smiling, and he's always in character, which is fantastic.
yeah.
All right, on to other news. We have more Shield news for you. All the members, so Dean and Roman that remain, have new entrances, they have new music, and appear that they're going in different directions as a whole. Jonathan, do you think the faction or slash tag team now, the Shield, is finally done?
I think they're done. I couldn't see them doing any more matches where the two of them at least, get titled as the Shield. Like I said, they're focusing on kind of a Rollins and Ambrose, getting that built up into some matches later on down the road. And I think that they're just taking Roman Reigns and saying, hey, this guy eventually is going to be a star. Let's go ahead and get him out behind the Shield, see what he can do, and kind of put him in the big spotlight. And I'm sad to say it, but I just don't see them, like I said, being the Shield any longer.
Yeah, well, they have to. If you're going to be this pedestal of what a faction is, you have to have that other faction to fight with, and they're not going to keep Evolution. It sounds like, and the Wyatt family, they missed that opportunity to make that huge match at WrestleMania, so there's no reason to keep them going, and they won't have an identity. So I think it's good that they're breaking them up. Now that said, they need if they're so highly elevated now, they have to keep them at that almost main event level right now because they're just going to be like everyone else and just drop if they don't.
Right, and I think that they've had a long time to think about it, of how they're actually going to plan and actually, go through everything, because there were talks for a long time. We were going into WrestleMania wondering if they were still going to be together, if it was going to be a triple threat match. And so, I mean, it's been a long thing coming, but I think it'll be best for all of them in the long run to kind of get their own character going and kind of to break out from the protection of, a group.
Now, I hope WWE listens to this very carefully. Get new entrance music for Seth Rollins so badly. It's awful.
Yeah.
And really, even with Reigns, with the Shield music, I could see that, but I think they're all going to transition, and I've read that people think that they're going to transition into new music form, which would be overall just great.
Would be great. Well, it's another week, and well, quite frankly, for the WWE, another announcements of some budget cuts going on. Um, According to some sources within the WWE, they're wanting to cut roughly $20 million this year. But first on the list is Bad News Barrett's scissor lift and some of Fandango's props. What would you do, Jacob, to help cut the costs? You got anything on the list that could go and wouldn't be missed?
Yeah, I mean, the list could go on and on for me because I love to complain about the WWE, thinking I would do better, but really I would tank it. But, I mean, there's a lot of things they can do. I mean, the part-time, I've always had an issue with part-time wrestlers because they come in, and Batista's the great example. The Rock comes in 2 years ago. He automatically gets the title shot for some reason, wins the title, faces Cena at WrestleMania main event. They pay him up the wazoo for him to do it. Batista does the same thing. Well, the fans this time, they're like, you're not The Rock. What are you doing taking all this? Well, I mean, they're paying these guys, the Lesners, all this money to do 3 matches a year almost.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking 10 million, whatever it is, that easily can be cut. But some of the wrestlers, they can still cut wrestlers. I mean, for me, Del Rio, CM Punk really needs to be cut. Darren Young, David Otunga, Great Khali, even Santino, for me, those are guys that could be cut and not missed.
Yeah,
What do you think?
you saying the Great Khali, I didn't even think about that, and I can't believe he's still on the payroll. But my whole thing is, I got to looking today, and they said just the truck that would take Fandango's stuff and Bad News Barrett's stuff cost them $225,000 a year just to drive those two people's stuff around. I'm telling you right now, they could call you and me. I would go and pay cash for a U-Haul, and we would drive around, and we could do it for half that cost.
Crap,
and,
yeah.
and we would split the money, and we would still have Fandango's backdrop. And
WWE, listen up. Pay us both $60,000 a year and let us meet the wrestlers. We'll do it for 2 days out of the year or 2 days out of the week. We'll do that. Real quick, for me, I wish they would not resign some of the older wrestlers. So like the R-Truth, Rey Mysterios, RVD, Big Show, even Mark Henry, the older wrestlers, they're in their 40s. They're not going to get the titles, and they're just there to fill. I know that they need them and they need to not cut them because of all the years they put in, but don't resign them.
especially with all the NXT people that they were trying to bring up.
Exactly. So, all right, CM Punk news. This time it's negative, which I guess most of them have been negative, recently. But with all the cuts that WWE is doing, which is a reported $20 million over the span of the year, wrestlers are getting upset that CM Punk hasn't been released last week, which we've talked about. Jonathan, is the wrestlers' anger justified, or does the WWE have a plan through all this?
I was curious when I first heard this story, and what I would really like to see is, their money on how much merchandise and how much money CM Punk is actually generating compared to how much they're paying. And it's got to be, they've got to be making more money than they're actually giving them, or I don't know why they would continue to pay them. But I do think that, the wrestlers, they're friends, and when you do cut some people that are there night in, night out, regardless on their role, regardless on their talent, I'm sure it does frustrate when you have somebody that supposedly just walked out and is still continuing to get a paycheck.
Right, and I'm guessing that's where most of his money's coming from, is merchandise. But I've read that Vince is trying hard to get a new contract deal with him. But my thoughts is, if I'm CM Punk, heck yeah, I'm going to sign a new contract with you. If I can sit home in Chicago and collect paycheck from you guys and not wrestle, then why not? That's my thing.
I think this is setting a bad example for the future for these wrestlers that, you know what, I'm not happy with, say John Cena all of a sudden decides, you know what, I'm not happy with the way I'd like to have the title a couple more times and you guys aren't giving it to me. I think I'm just going to stay at home and take it easy and, it's just going to start an avalanche eventually.
Right, right. You're going to have almost like strikes where they're going to demand more than they deserve, and it's one of those things that the machine can go on without CM Punk, and it'll always go on without CM Punk.
And they've shown that because it's been, however many weeks now, months that he hasn't been around. Well, we have some more Sting news from the most recent rumors. It sounds like he'll be featured in 2K's WWE 2K15 video game, with the game set to be released in about 4 months, as well as talks of being in this year's Hall of Fame class. Surely, with all that, we'll have some Sting FaceTime on TV, right? What do you, we'll be seeing him sometime soon?
Yeah, I think he signed the network deal, and rumors are there's going to be a documentary, which will be amazing to have Sting. I think that it's good for especially for the game because people they had the Mike Tysons and different things. Sting is one that it's like if you can't buy it on the Xbox Live or PlayStation Marketplace, I would love to buy. And the video games, I'm sure, make them good money. I think that really overall the biggest thing with Sting is there if he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, he needs to do one match with the WWE. He can't go off of his WCW. And to me, that's more important than anything else because I want him in the Hall of Fame. He's the icon that was a franchise for all of WCW to the day it died. And to me, that's what the focus should be is get him that one match, even if it's a SummerSlam. Doesn't have to be Mania, which I wish it would be Mania, but get him his one match so he can go in the Hall of Fame. What do you think?
Do you, now I got a question. Do you think that, I have heard rumors of a documentary. Do you think that's going to be a DVD for a while? Or do you think, because, we're in this new era of the network, is it going to come to the network first? Or do you think it's going to go to the DVD for a couple months, even a couple years before we actually get to see it on the network?
I think because if you look at the Batista new documentary they did, he has not shown up yet. So I think they'll put it at least 6 months or so off. I think it'd be strategically smart for the WWE to take it to where documentaries you only have 10 documentaries and then you remove documentaries and you filter through instead of keeping a list of it, and that way it's still fresh and it seems like you're getting new material when it's really just recycled material.
Right, and I do agree. You've got to wrestle at least once to be in the WWE Hall of Fame, or you got to do something. And finally, are you going to get the game when it comes out? Uh,
Uh, I don't think I'm gonna buy it new. I'm hoping Sting eventually will be something. It seems like I buy the new game every 3 years because I have like Raw versus SmackDown '06, and then like I have '08 I think, which was the coolest one because you could do the GM mode, and I have 13. So I mean, I won't buy the game new, but I think will buy the game.
if the only way you can get Sting is if you pre-order it,
Oh my
are
goodness.
you getting it then? That's the only way you can get them.
Well, if hopefully my fiance is not listening because if that's the case, then I might use part of my bonus and get that.
There you go.
We'll keep that quiet though. All right. Well, one more story here about CM Punk. It's reported that there's a possibility that CM Punk and AJ Lee tied the knot on Friday the 13th. AJ stated she would return to the WWE after the wedding. Jonathan, do you think this means AJ is going to be returning soon?
I don't know. I mean, it's bummer that she hasn't been around, but I feel like her character kind of started getting old towards the end of her time. I mean, and especially since they didn't really give any other diva a shot, really. It was
Right.
just, her, and no matter what happens, she's going to win. The thing that I would be the most interested about is I would love to see them on Total Divas. I think
Yeah,
even if, CM Punk's not wrestling and he's signed, he's in a contract, say, hey, you don't have to wrestle, but we just want to be able to film you.
right.
And I think a lot of people would turn it on just to, check
That'd
it
be a
out.
lot bigger. I mean, all of CM Punk's appearances have been huge because people want him to do a pipe bomb, and they're waiting for that one moment where he snaps and tells all these dirty secrets about the WWE. So I mean, him showing up on Divas would be a huge ratings boost.
Yeah,
I actually saw a clip from Total Divas because I've never seen the material, and John Cena was yelling at Nikki Bella about these pantries. The workout clothes goes here, the nice clothes goes here, and he's kind of an OCD jerk. Cena is. He was like, and she was like, okay.
yeah, and but he gets better later on. So you need to check them out. They're pretty good. And I know my wife, the princess, she watches it every week. So that's her highlight for wrestling. But I don't see CM Punk coming back. I think he's done. I think the only way he comes back is if the Rumble or WrestleMania is in Chicago. That's
It would
the
take a lot of money, more than The Rock or someone probably to bring him back if everything is true and it's not a work, which I'm pretty sure it's not.
This isn't much of a headline, but more of a talking topic. But almost once a week you hear on ESPN about who you've got in a certain sport's Mount Rushmore, which, by the way, I have LeBron on my NBA Mount Rushmore. But anyways, if the WWE were to make a Mount Rushmore, Jacob, who you got on it?
Okay. Well, with the whole Rusev doing his whole the Russian Mount Rushmore, it got me thinking. And for me, if you're gonna do a Mount Rushmore, you need to do it by era. And so my four are Bruno Sammartinez. I have, instead of Hogan, which most people would have, I have Rowdy Piper. I'll get into that in a second. I have Austin and Cena. I've kind of excluded The Rock because The Rock kind of went his own way outside of pop culture. He probably would deserve it, but Hogan, everyone's gonna have Hogan because he's the guy that carried it for years. But for me, I always want to give love to Piper because they never gave Piper the championship. And Piper was that villain. He's the Joker to who, if Hogan was Batman, that Hogan would in Hulkamania could not exist without Rowdy Piper in his mouth and building up this match to be such an epic thing. And he ultimately gets beat every time by Hulk Hogan. What's your Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to yours. I mean, almost exactly. I definitely have Bruno. If you're holding the title for 4 straight years, I mean, that's impressive regardless of what
What
era you're
era?
in.
Yeah.
I'm going with Hulk Hogan, and then, like you said, I'm going with The Rock. I know we're different there, but and then I'm going with Cena. But I had some other names that I was considering. I've got Stone Cold, Undertaker, Shawn McMichaels, Triple H, Andre the Giant, Ric Flair. But I was on my fifth guy. If there was a fifth, it would be Vince McMahon. I
Oh,
think you'd
yeah,
have
for
to
sure.
put him on there.
Right. And it's one of those things he carried the company from a small organization to this billion dollar, I guess not anymore, $1 million business. And he's one of those guys that even carried it through all the wars, and he definitely deserves to be on there.
Well, to put you on the spot real quick, can you name all four of the guys that are actually on the real one?
On the real,
On the
oh,
Mount Rushmore. I'm putting you on
no,
the spot.
let's see. There's Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt. Um, oh my gosh. I'm guessing George Washington.
Uh-huh. You got
Am
one
I
more.
three? Am
You
I
got
three
your
for three?
three for three.
Oh my gosh! And then there's one more. I'm gonna say. Oh crap. Is it a? It's a. Obviously, it's before World War II. Um, is it someone like Jackson? I don't know.
Thomas Jefferson.
Jefferson.
I had
Oh,
to look it up as well because I got the other three and I couldn't think of him. But I put you on the spot there. Why don't you go ahead and lead us into our special segment for the week?
Today's special segment, we are talking for everyone to get to know us. We're going to talk about our favorite wrestlers, and I kind of broke it down into my the eras of wrestling that I watched and you grew up with, and then we'll go into the wrestlers we hate. And for me, let's just start with WCW. So the '90s, obviously, that's the mecca of wrestling. It's kind of like the golden era for that. NBA still in the '90s, everyone talks about it. Who was your favorite wrestlers for WCW?
Well, I started and I got hooked on wrestling all because of Sting. I thought, the way that he kind of went about himself and just this guy wearing a mask, coming down from the rafters, carrying a baseball bat. I mean, I remember having a baseball bat at home that I spray painted
You
black just so I
you
could
hit
walk
me with
around.
it a couple times. Yeah.
But I would go Sting, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page is definitely on my list. Goldberg, I remember huge Goldberg fan at the time, and then even towards the end for the NWO Wolfpack, I started liking Kevin Nash at the time. But who do you have on your WCW list?
You got two of them. Sting, obviously, the Crow character was amazing, and he was the only person that could take down the NWO, which was a great angle they had. I have Goldberg too. Goldberg was just incredible story. That was one of those perfect things that was a slow burning that exploded, but then once it was so big, it almost destroyed itself. DDP, I would have DDP on my list, but Ready to Rumble. I believe that's what it is. Isn't that
Yeah,
the name of the movie?
yeah, that's the
Ready to
movie.
Rumble. That's an awful movie, which is hilarious to watch, but I can't put him on for that. My other one would be Lex. I love the torture rack, and I think someone should bring that in. I've seen Cesaro do a torture rack power bomb. I don't know why that's not his finishing move, but I would have to say Lex is probably my other one. So with WWF, we really didn't grow up watching it too much until kind of the invasion, a little bit after WCW lost its cool. Who's on your WWF list?
Definitely, and this is later on in WWF.
Right, this is before the WWE.
I've always been a huge fan of The Rock, and I'm still a huge fan of The Rock. Probably my other one that I really thought was cool was The Undertaker. More of the biker Undertaker, at the time, because yeah, we grew up on WCW and there wasn't a lot of gimmicks, and at the time of that, I just thought this Undertaker, this is kind of a stupid, goofy character, but then he started riding a Harley down to the ring, and I was like, man, this guy is pretty bad. Um, but I would go with that. I enjoyed Scotty Too Hottie, somebody doing the worm or Rikishi, but definitely The Rock and Undertaker for that time period.
For me, I had down. I've never really watched Rowdy Piper because obviously it was before I was even born, most of it. But watching his documentary and stuff, I have a huge respect for him now because of what he did, how he elevated talking. He was like the first real villain and never got his props. Obviously, I was a Kurt Angle fan, still am technically. He doesn't really do too much with TNA anymore. I'm hoping he comes back and does his last run with them. And then when I was looking back at my time, and then we had signs from when we went to WWF when it was at Market Square Arena, and I was a Hurricane Helmsley fan too.
Yeah.
Horrible. I don't know why or what I was thinking at the time, but I was a Hurricane Helmsley fan. So let's get into the more modern WWE. Who do you like now?
I definitely at the start I thought I liked Cena. I enjoy rap music. I kind of liked his whole gimmick. Um, I definitely liked that. I still have The Rock. I'm big supporter of Daniel Bryant. Um, and I enjoy seeing Chris Jericho a lot now in the later, not so much in the WCW, even though I think he did a great job on his roles and his wrestling all times, but really liked Chris Jericho now. Um, but I definitely say Daniel Bryan's probably the biggest at the moment since The Rock's kind of filming movies.
Right, he's more of a movie role than anything else. For me, currently, um, I'm a I'm a Jericho fan. Like you said, WCW, he really never got the attention he deserved there. Actually, fun fact, I kind of quit watching. You left the house, and I kind of quit watching wrestling in between like 2005, 2006, and my junior year of college. Raw came to Fort Wayne. It was like the first time in like 4 years. I was like, I got my ex-girlfriend like, let's just go to it. And I had a Y2J sign. And that's the only reason I got back into pro wrestling was because Chris Jericho was there, because it was like everyone else was like a Cena and all these things. And like Randy Orton was under suspension because of his drug policy. And I was just like, eh. But I was like, Chris Jericho, I'll go watch him. I also have Ziggler. I'm a huge Ziggler fan now. Props to him. He deserves everything Cena's getting, but doesn't. And I'm a bad news bad fan. He's
That's
eventually
very good.
he's eventually gonna break that mold. He's kind of like what the Boss Man was back with corporate WWF, but I'm hoping they'll eventually elevate him up. But who knows with that what will happen.
Well, moving on, if we go on the other side, that's kind of our favorites. If we look at the other side of, people that we hated, starting back at our WCW times, who did somebody that comes to mind that you just couldn't stand watching at the time?
Ah, Disco Inferno. I hated Disco Inferno. That was like, why even get him camera time? That was just, ugh. And really, there wasn't too much I can remember of people that I just absolutely hated besides David Arquette winning the championship. To me, was just like, how in the world does something so prestigious go to David Arquette? And it was because of the movie, obviously. But that to me is just, looking back at it now, it's just like a nightmare
How
recurring.
low can you go?
Yeah, and then Jeff Jarrett, the guy that could break 1,000 guitars and then never make a single dime out of it.
Right.
So,
Well, I'm going with since I was such a big Sting fan. On the other side of that was the original first NWO. I couldn't stand it at the time. Dad would just cheer for Hogan and cheer for him just to tick me off, and so I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand Eric Bischoff. Really, those are the only ones at the time that I couldn't get over. Moving on to the WWF era, who kind of stands out after we kind of moved out of WCW?
for me, WWF, it was different because they did such a great job of balancing their characters and everything. It's hard for me to pick out someone I hated. I'd have to really go back and look. I didn't like John Cena's original gimmick at the time, the rapper thing, but looking back at it now, it's so much better than what we have now with his character. I didn't like the Big Show. I don't know why. It just seemed like he was, at that time, he was 500 plus pounds of fat, lazy wrestling. So I never really liked him. Other than that, I mean, I really didn't have a guy I hated like I do now. Now I'm too much invested in it that I have people that I hate a lot.
Now, see, I'm the other way on that. Now I've seen all these documentaries. I've seen kind of the behind the wrestler, and so I kind of take a step back and look at it as if you're able to pull a Randy Orton and have everybody boo at you, you're obviously doing something right, and so I'm almost appreciating that. But in the WWF, you were a fan of Kurt Angle. I couldn't stand Kurt Angle.
you
I
you suck all the time.
you suck on his entrance, and I was all over that. I didn't care for Edge at the time either, just from the whole we're Canadian and all of that. But and I actually just stumbled upon him today, kind of looking up old WWF characters. But um, Stevie Richards from Right to Censor. I remember on SmackDown, and I'm watching this to see some chicks on the screen or to see the Godfather come down or something. And here you got this big no symbol, and you talk about being bummed out for the rest of the night because this
Well, talk
guy's,
about heat they created. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. Well, I guess with the factions, but yeah, I mean, they took a porn star and they took the Godfather and created all these things where it's just like, holy crap. And yeah, I mean, because that was in that era where they were just transitioning out of that whole Playboy divas were models and trying to transitioning out of it. And it was a perfect way to create heat for these guys because you get all these grown men who are there to see like the Sables and Tori Wilsons, and they're throwing blankets on them. And every time they come out with gay outfits, you hear that siren, and you're just like, no.
yeah. Now I'll let you go first on this one as well, since it sounds like you're going to have a lot of names to list on current WWE.
Now, for me, the people I hate the most are the gimmicks wrestlers. I mean, for me, I understand that most of them, if not all of them, are put in this situation. They don't choose to be in this situation. But I hate Santino because I know every time he comes out, it's a comedic one. It's either going to be a squash or he's there for comedic reasons. I hate Great Khali. He can't walk. He can't wrestle. He can't talk. He's only there because he's Indian, I'm guessing. I mean, and there's a ton of people. I mean, I like Heath Slater, but I know every time it gets to a point where some of these guys go down the totem pole so far that you can't, like Brodus Clay, I hated like the Funkadactyls and all that. And I want more serious wrestling, but you're catering to a different audience, so you need some of these. I like Fandango. I loved him from the beginning. I don't like where they kind of took him. I'm guessing he had an injury or something that kind of put him down the totem pole. But some of these like the Bo Dallas gimmick is awesome. But I'm not really an Adam Roseman. I mean, I liked it watching him live. I kind of got into it chanting his music. But, I mean, it's all these horrible gimmicks that I hate the most.
Yeah.
Who do you hate?
You definitely hit it with the Great Khali. I'm just like, how in the world could he be winning so many matches early on and only have one move, which is the headbutt? I mean, I think that's the only thing he can possibly do. But like I said, with all these documentaries that they have, currently with the authority role of Triple H, it makes me want to hate him, but then at the same time, I'm like, man, I loved his documentary so much and about the wrestler and about the person behind him that I just have a hard time hating him. But
Right. There's a difference between a heat kind of and then the actual pure hatred. Like Batista for me right now is another one I would say because it's not because of him and coming back. It's what they gave him so early that they won't give like a Ziggler.
right,
That's where the hatred. And he went on to WWE.com talking about how I broke my back for you guys and I had sweat and tears and blood for 10 years. And like, yeah, that's great. But you left for like 6 years and you automatically get a main event at WrestleMania, which you're out of shape and out of relevance, really.
yeah. And I definitely almost all the gimmicks anymore I enjoy just because I'm looking at it more of a fun kind of laid back way. I like Fandango. I love Bo Leave. I was probably the only one on the whole entire section standing up and celebrating when he won it in Indy. But it's hard for me to pick somebody that I don't care for. I'd probably have to go with Randy Orton, just for the fact recently of all his winnings and things like that. But not too many hatred anymore.
The mark my words, Bo Dallas' gimmick is amazing, and Bo Dallas will be Intercontinental Champion by WrestleMania 31. Mark my words.
All right,
There's no way they're not going to give him a push.
we're gonna mark that down then.
All right. So we're going to transition now to our birthdays and anniversary week.
We've got June 16th would have been the Ultimate Warrior's 55th birthday, as he passed away this year, but really hadn't done too much in the WWE except for, kind of later on, right before the end, started to got the Hall of Fame, but it would have been 55 for him.
All right. In our anniversary week, June 25th, 2000, Kurt Angle won the King of the Ring tournament, which elevated him and pushed him into that main event status that everyone knows Kurt Angle now for.
Well, kind of going along with that, we'll go into the WWE Network review. And kind of Kurt Angle was in there on that WrestleMania Rewind. I know you were probably definitely excited for that, hoping that he kind of makes a comeback. We have actually tonight, and with the Legends kind of wrapping up on their with a reunion show. Countdown. I'm getting the princess to watch the Divas. I've kind of sold her into that, so she's going to watch that with me. But have you got to see anything good on Rewind lately, or Network?
Yeah, with the Network, I watched both the Countdown and the Rewind. The Countdown, I won't have my fiance watch because there's a little bit of too much sexual content in there that I can't really, don't think it's appropriate. But the Rewind, I love the Rewind because obviously I'm a Kurt Angle guy, but really the Eddie Angle kind of feud they had was pure wrestling, and it's wrestling at its finest. That it's not as much gimmicks, it's not much characters, it's purely wrestling based, which I love that. The reunion I'm excited to watch. I think the way they edited the trailer for this episode is going to be not as dramatic as that the cuts made it, because the cuts took all the bad parts of a 40-minute episode and put it all together. But, I mean, that'll be fun. I think that season 2, whenever they do that, if they do that, that will be awesome. And I really like Legends House. What are you going to be watching?
I definitely watched the Rewind. And I just, how great a match that was between Angle and Eddie. But I actually watched an original. It was about the Attitude Era. And of course, there's so many documentaries about that era. But this one, I don't know if they just added it. I hadn't seen it before, but it was really good. And like I said, it's nothing new, but it was definitely exciting. Do we have any Twitter questions for tonight's show?
Actually, yes. We have quite a few questions from some of our followers on our Twitter account at HWT Podcast. First question comes from Kyle Barker at I am Kyle, Kyle, Barker, Barker. And he asked, who should walk away with the championship at Money in the Bank?
Man, I think I'm really excited for this pay-per-view. I've been trying to stay excited for him because of our Harrell pay-per-view predictions that we do every week or every month. But for Best for Business, I'm going with Cena. I don't see anybody else in there worth the time having the belt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, I think who should win? I think Sheamus should win because they gave him the United States Championship for a reason, and I think him winning that, and he's beaten Barrett, they could do that angle with him having all the championships, but that leads into problems. I think probably, sadly, Cena should win, but I think the other person Wyatt should win, because him with the championship would be insane.
Yeah.
And that would elevate him. With Cena not feuding with him after this, they have to give him something, or he's kind of going to drop in that rankings kind of with the superstars.
Right.
Okay, we have another question from Matt Turmoil at Matt, MattUrmoil. He has his own podcast, which you can check that out at Matt, urmol.podbeam.com. He asked the question, is Ziggler being injury prone, which that's a topic that's been kind of on Twitter with different people, an excuse or a legit circumstance for in which the WWE created team considers?
I think it's got to be an excuse. I don't know what has happened. Something's going on in the background to
Right.
where.
From what I've read, he's had 2 concussions. He had that 1 concussion, obviously, when he got the championship, which is the biggest thing. But 2 concussions within the span of 2 years, I think, is the injuries they're saying.
So something's going on the business side of it that I would imagine. I don't think it's injury prone. It's because it's accidents. It's not like he's going out here going too hard.
Well, and my rant's going to be on this, which I won't go in too much detail about that. But if that's the case, you can't use injury prone. And I know they use that with Christian. That's why they're not using him. But, I mean, there's so many injuries that happen in wrestling. And it's just like with Daniel Bryan. Are they not going to give him the title again? Because, I mean, Cena's been hurt, all these people, which I won't go into any more of that because that's something. But I think that it is an excuse for them not to use him with the whole booking process. We have another one from Jason Garrett. That's at Jason JASONGRR or G, sorry, 1RTT. He asked the question, minus the streak ending at WrestleMania, because that's his, what's the most shocking WWE moment for you guys?
Man, I'll let you go first on this one. So if you've got something, that way I can think about it for a minute.
With shocking moments, I would have to say, kind of the Money in the Bank cash-ins have been the most shocking moments. Like the moment I will always remember, Ziggler cashing in with the crowd pop was awesome, but that was shock value. I think the shock value for me, I kind of started getting back with the CM Punk thing. I did not see this live, but I remember watching it when CM Punk won the Money in the Bank, and then they took the World Heavyweight away from him with no excuse, and they just had Randy Orton do his punt, and then he's out of the match, and then they stripped him of his title. That, to me, is just like, holy crap, because that's not scripted. That's something that they had to back up real quick. The other shocking moment would be Brock Lesnar doing his superplex with Big Show and the ring collapsing is something I will never forget.
That will be probably I'm gonna have to go with that one. It would probably be either that or Goldberg getting beat by Kevin Nash. At the time, Goldberg was built up so much where anybody that beat him was going to be kind of a disappointment. But I do agree with you on the Brock Lesnar Big Show. Still to this day, I remember watching that SmackDown, and it's amazing, watching that WrestleMania Rewind where all these matches and all this stuff was going on SmackDown, and I remember as a kid watching all the SmackDown, and now I've got cable, I've got access to everything, and really the only thing I watch week to week is Raw, where I don't even watch SmackDown anymore.
Right. I watch SmackDown on Hulu Plus, so I'm not even getting the full time of that. A lot of it I'll just look up on Bleacher Report. So, all right. And we have one more from hashtag Roll Tide. It's at BWO4Life 2014. He asked, who will walk away with the Money in the Bank briefcase with its shot at the title?
I'm going to have to go with Seth Rollins on that. Really, I mean, since he's the only person listed on it right now, but I think he's probably one of the few guys that's getting the most heat right now, and I think that would be the best option for them to give it to somebody with the most heat.
Right, and really Wyatt's one of those people that he's too cool that people cheer for him, and he's feuding against like John Cena. Seth Rollins is the only guy that I can think of right now that gets a heel response that's an active wrestler, that gets the boos, you sell out, kind of you sold out thing, is amazing because Batista was the only other one that would get boos. Everyone else, the heels are kind of the cool people, and you boo kind of the baby faces. So, I mean, I think you're right. I think with the whole angle with authority and stuff, they're going to have him take it. I think that like I said before, I'd rather see BMB take it or Cody Rhodes. Swagger would be someone that could benefit greatly from it to get back in that main event status. But I'm going to have to go with the wild card. My official pick, I'm going to pick Rusev is going to get it. And that would be awesome because he's a guy that could feud if Rollins gets it. And that would be, I mean, you can even have Lana come in and cash it in too, which would be awesome.
Well, let's kind of finish out the show here, and we do our 30 seconds of our rants. You know, this is probably what I look forward to the most in each show and each week. And right now, I've actually got a list of items, about 4 items that I'm just waiting for, and just to get off my mind. But what's your rant for this week?
All right, back to the Ziggler injury-prone, trustworthy section. To me, this is a total cop-out for Triple H and different issues that have arrived with Ziggler. So let me ask the question to Triple H. How's your quad feeling? Your knee, your throat, your neck? I mean, those are injuries you suffered during your span as a wrestler. John Cena, how's your neck, elbow, bicep, your eyes? Orton, how many strikes do you have on your drug policy? I mean, these are things, Rey Mysterio has 2 strikes. Randy Orton has 2 strikes. You're not giving Ziggler, a fan favorite, a push because he's injury prone? Are you kidding me?
All right. Well, I'm going to go a little bit more topical here, and
okay.
I watched the World Cup the other night. I get pumped for soccer once every 4 years. World Cup. I can't stand soccer. It is the biggest joke in the world. Their referees are worse than the referees in the WWE. I mean, you've got this huge field, one referee. Nobody knows what the heck, how much time's left in the game. Are you kidding me? And they flop worse and more often than the wrestlers do themselves. So soccer is a joke, and I'm glad it only comes around once every 4 years.
You want to see something awesome? Watch Bad News About It talk about the World Cup on WWE.com. Thank you for listening to Harrell Wrestling Talk. Listen and watch our next podcast every Friday. We would love to have fan interaction. So follow us at Twitter at HWT Podcast, like us at Facebook at HWT Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, HWT Podcast. Feel free to give feedback, corrections, and any advice is always welcome. We would love to have sponsorships. You can contact us at Harrell, Harrell, Wrestling Talk at Outlook.com. Last advice we will give you before we leave: if your girlfriend, wife, boyfriend, or husband says you watch too much wrestling, tell them that's impossible. Till next time, Wrestling World, keep listening and keep watching.